everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I wanted to go over my October wrap up. This is the new hair, by the way. I just realized I just filmed 2 videos out of order, so the next video you get next week I will be reintroducing my hair again, thinking that that's the first video, but it is what it is. But yeah, I chopped everything off and now I'm back to my natural hair status, which is curly hair. I hope you like it. I've been if you guys have been around, you know I've been talking about this for a while, but I'm definitely not used to my hair, so if I'm touching it a lot, that's why. Yeah, I'm not used to having so much around my face. October, I only ended up reading 2 books, so this video should be short. I do like to chit chat more than other people maybe. I just really enjoy talking to you guys. But yeah, I only read 2 books in October because I was quite stressed in October. I was planning the Christmas vacation for me and my mom, and there's something about Christmas vacation where I have a huge mental block where I just I panic and I freeze and I don't know what to do. And I had no inspiration. I didn't know where I wanted to go. I didn't know where I wanted to take us. And I just kind of froze. I just froze. And then because I was freezing, time was going by and I was really worried, like, okay, if I don't need to make a decision, you know, there won't be any flights, there won't be any hotels, we won't end up going anywhere. I'll end up disappointing my mom. Like, you know, all those, I'm not really an anxious person, but there are certain things that can cause a little bit of stress in me, and that is one of them. So because I found myself procrastinating on planning this vacation, I was sort of saying, okay, well, I can't allow myself to read books because that's just selfish, when I should be planning this vacation. So I was preventing myself from reading to try and get myself to plan the vacation. But that of course backfired as well because I wasn't relaxing at all, and so I was just stressed. And so instead of planning my vacation and instead of reading, I was just doing Instagram on the phone and watching movies on Netflix because I just didn't know any other way to turn my brain off from all of my own voice telling me to, you know, sit down and like come up with something. I have come up with something where we are going to have a lovely Christmas vacation. It's going to be absolutely wonderful, truly delightful. And so now I feel much better. So just to let you know, so that you don't have to worry about me. But let me discuss to you the 2 books that I managed to finish in the month of October. The first one is We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson, because it was the month of October and because it's, you know, the spooky vibes, and this is quite a popular book to read for people in this time period. I thought I would join in the fun. This is also a book that I acquired just this year over the summer in the annual English book sale here in Tokyo. Now, Shirley Jackson is one of those authors that I have read once before, and that was back in middle school, where like most American middle school students, I read The Lottery. And that short story, just like a lot of kids, I think, just grasped me immediately. That story was amazing, phenomenal. But becoming an adult, and a few years ago, I came to the realization that I have a really bad habit of loving a book that I read by an author and then never trying to read something ever again by them. So I had the same thing. So Shirley Jackson, and then Mary Shelley, I've only read Frankenstein. I wouldn't read more books about her. I can't think right now, but there are just so many authors where I'd only read their probably their most famous work, but just a major work, just never read anything else. George Orwell was one. I had read 1984, but I read Animal Farm. That's a lie. Anyway, there have been numerous examples on this channel of me deciding to revisit an author that I had previously loved and then never revisited ever again. So Shirley Jackson, this was her time. However, I unfortunately did not have the amount of love for this book that so many people do, especially since it just happened that Ariel Bissett she read this book for the very first time. And on her podcast with her friend, she loved it. She declared it her most favorite book of all time, like her favorite classic of all time. I can't share that emotion, to be honest. This book is about two sisters who are shunned from their town because their family, upon one evening at a dinner, they were all poisoned and everyone died except for the two sisters who and their uncle who managed to get out of it. And so they are shunned by the town, and they lived in their house sort of on the outskirts, and they're quite content with their lives. You know, they go into town to get the sort of the few groceries that are necessary, but you know, they don't really interact with anyone, but they're happy just to be among sisters and to have the uncle there and take care of him and whatnot. But one day their world flips upside down when a estranged cousin comes to visit and sort of just messes things around. Now, the story is quite predictable in how the plot progresses, which doesn't mean that makes the book bad. There's nothing bad about the book, but the lottery and the twist in the lottery was so shocking that I was kind of hoping for something like this. The plot twist was foreshadowed the entire book. I mean, it's hinted at the entire book, so you would kind of have to be pretty dense. I don't want to insult anyone who didn't get it, but I feel like you'd have to be either very dense or just be one of those people who like makes no effort to solve like a thriller at all while you're reading it. And so it was just obvious when it came out, but it either way, that the plot twist ended up not mattering, because this particular edition, the Penguin Classics particular edition of this book, they spoil the book in the very first line, right up here in bold black letters. They spoil the plot twist in the very first line of the book. So that's where it is. But I mean, the book is superbly written. Shirley Jackson is a amazing writer. The plot is quite good, and it ends up being sort of like an interesting take at sort of, it looks at basically the creation of town gossip, of like the town folk tale, the town horror tale, the type of tale that young kids in the future will gather around a campfire with their Boy Scout, Girl Scout friends and be like, ooh, have you heard about the two witches in the mansion, and they fly out at night and they eat little children. Like, this book is basically about the creation of one of those legends, and that makes the book interesting. But and then on topped with Shirley Jackson's writing, it makes the book really enjoyable to read, very pleasant to read. It just didn't grip me in the way that I was hoping it would, and it didn't do anything for me other than just be like, okay, it was a pleasant read. I'm happy to have read this. But I wish I could share Ariel besides sort of emotions and be like, yes, it's the best book ever. It's amazing. Everyone needs to read this, etc. No, everyone needs to read this because it's an enjoyable book, but I just didn't share those love emotions. So that's We Have Always Lived in the Castle by Shirley Jackson. The only other book that I finished in the month of October was the continuation of my reading of Zola's Rougon-Macquart cycle. I don't have that book physically. The book physically is back in the US, so I'm just going to show another book by Zola and cover up the title. But the particular book that I read was Au Bonheur des Dames, Ladies Paradise. So this book is the continuation. So I think it's the 8th book in the Rougon-Macquart cycle in its recommended chronological order, which is what I've been reading. This is a continuation of a character that was introduced once in the book La Conquête de Plassans, which is fascinating, such a good book. But this character, Octave Mouret, was the son of the protagonist in that book. And Octave Mouret actually comes up again first in the book Poubouille, which is the book right before this one. So you read about Octave in La Conquête de Plassans. You get a brief look at Octave when he's a young boy, like younger than like 17 years old, just really just a child basically. Poubouille is his young, I would say very like late 19s, early 20s in Paris, and then Au Bonheur des Dames is him becoming an adult man basically. And so, yeah, so revisiting this character and seeing the development of his character is quite fascinating. Au Bonheur des Dames is basically, he has taken over the shop that his wife had. I guess it's a spoiler from the previous book, the fact that he married a woman. But that's the thing about these books. It's really hard to talk about them without giving away the plots of everything else. But he took over the shop, and then he takes it into a new direction, a grandiose direction, and basically ends up creating one the first major department store of Paris, along the lines of what you see now with La Samaritaine, Printemps, and the other big one that I can't come up with that also starts with an S, and it's in the same area as Printemps. But you know what I'm talking about. Hopefully you know what I'm talking about. But it's basically him about creating this department store, and his character is juxtaposed by the author of Denise. Denise is not part of the Rougon or the Macquart cycle. She is just brought in from the outside, and she comes in to become a saleswoman in the department store, and Octave starts to fall in love with her, but she is very defiant and refuses his advances. So this book becomes a look at the different social classes in Paris. So the very poor, the middle class, the upper class, the people who, how people try to get money, the people who stay within their morals, whether you can have success or failure from that. Well, can your own morals go against you? It shows the transformation, the fascinating transformation of Paris, how all these boutiques, little boutiques in the neighborhood are getting eaten up by the department store Au Bonheur des Dames. There is so much involved in this book. It is absolutely fascinating. This was actually a reread for me. I read this book once. I think it was actually the very first Zola book I read ever. So I read this probably back, I don't know, maybe even earlier than college, or at least within college was the first time I read this. And it was just fascinating, just as fascination upon reading as it was the first time. Because Au Bonheur des Dames, which is so amazing, is that Zola is a realism author. He writes everything in the most beautiful detail. He can describe something and just like, you're there. And so this entire time you're in this department store, and you go through the lace department and the garments, the hat department, and the tailor's apartment, and the fragrance department, and he just, the details are fascinating. The energy from a crowd of women flooding the store because of the sales that he puts on, or the new promotions he puts on, because Octave, our character Octave, is as he's not just creating the department store in terms of the size of the department store, or just the conglomeration of what used to be individual boutiques for different departments, putting all that together under one roof, but he's also creating the culture of the department store. So yeah, the promotions, the free samples, the lounge with chairs, so that the husbands and the gentlemen of the women can relax and read a newspaper while they spend all their money. They spend all the money of the husbands. It's the culture of sort of bribing young children by giving them balloons, by giving them little macarons. You know, it's that whole culture. Like Zola talks about all of it. So I mean, there's one scene. It's just you can't stop thinking like Black Friday sales and like Christmas time in a shopping mall back in the day, when it was just packed everywhere and people were trying to get good deals and trying to grab the new fragrance, the new fabrics, the new lace fabrics, or the satin fabrics, and comparing it, the satin from this region of France to the satin in this region of France. It's fascinating. And then the price wars, and then the look about how, like, the awe, but also the shame and sort of the anger that comes from people trying to compete against this. Everything is included in this book, and it is fabulous, absolutely fabulous. Just like I read it by itself, because this was the first book that I ever read by Zola, I had actually read it out of both suggested chronological order, but I had also read it out of the original published order. But this book stands by itself, and it's beautiful. So if you want to get a feel for one of how Zola writes, for his realism and whatnot, like this is a good book to start with. Like if you don't think you're ready to tackle a 20 book series that where all the books are basically 500 pages, this is a good way to sort of get a feel for what you can expect from his books. And this is one of his books that, for once, is not full of despair. It's not just full of despair and sadness and foreshadowing of a horrible end. This one actually ends on quite a happy note, which is refreshing. And yeah, so it's a good way to get a dose of Zola without, if you're not ready to invest yet. If you don't think you're ready to invest, like you want to get a feeling for who he is. So yeah, so I read 2 really interesting books in the month of October. I can't say the book is green because this isn't the right one, but yeah, it was even though I didn't finish many books, I did make progress on other books. I started Monstreux by Natsuo Kirino, which is a thriller. At work, I started La Reine Margot by Dumas as well, and then I also started Otsuichi, Kurai Tokoro de Machiawase, which means waiting in the dark. So these are books that I started, the thriller and the Otsuichi book for the October fall vibes, and then La Reine Margot I started to have as my next PDF file at work. So those books I started, but I just haven't finished. You should see them in the month of November. So anyway, that's my October wrap up. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week with a very fun video that I've already filmed, so I know it's going to come out next week. So anyway, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!